Welcome to Behind the Backline, the podcast where we chat with merchants, brands, and industry professionals in the musical instrument, pro audio, and event technology space about their products, services, industry trends, stories, and more. Join us now as we dig into the stories behind our favorite backline gear.
Welcome to episode 18 of Behind the Backline. I'm Matt Jacoby of Octave Media, and today I am speaking with Mike Russo of DynaMount. Thanks for joining me today, Mike.
Right on. Thank you for having me, Matt.
Yeah. So, quick, where are you guys, or where are you calling from today?
So we're based out of sunny San Diego.
That sounds much better than cloudy Wisconsin right now.
So you look at the rent.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely city.
There you go. Well, cool. So let's start off by kind of having you tell us a little bit about who you are.
So my name is Mike. I'm the CTO and co-founder of DynaMount. We make some pretty unique products for recording engineers, front of house engineers. Essentially, our products allow you to physically manipulate your microphone position from your smartphone, your computer, so you don't have to be running back and forth, making changes by hand, or even if you have an intern, it can just do things that you physically can't do by hand, such as precise A/B comparisons. So it's a pretty nifty tool. So you can just focus on using your ears. And
the description doesn't give it any justice because you have to see these things in action. I'm walking up to your booth at NAMM. I'm like, oh, mini robots. These are awesome. They're very impressive to watch, and just how you have control over them. But I believe you have a couple different models, correct? Like, is there like a manual one, or are they all activated through like iPhone interfaces, or?
Essentially, yes. I mean, our current product line is basically a few variations on the same product. For example, our most popular one is the X1R, which is dual axis plus rotation. And what that means is essentially you can move the microphone forward and back, you can move the microphone left and right, and you can also rotate the microphone on and off axis. But we also have other variations. We have the V1R, which is the same thing. It just doesn't have the second rail. So it can still move side to side and rotate. And then we also have our simplest model, which is just the V1. It's essentially just a single axis. So you can move side to side, front to back, up and down, whatever orientation you want. So yeah, kind of a few different variations on the same idea.
And looking at your website, I see you guys have a new EP18 model. What's the difference with this one?
Yeah, so that's a whole nother animal right there. So our current product line is geared, the X1R and the V1R and the V1, that's geared mostly towards recording studios and live sound. The Echo PT is targeted more towards broadcast and film applications like that. It's a power over Ethernet pan tilt system. It's silent while in motion. It's extremely silent, smooth motion. Has a small camera that you can actually clip onto the microphone, so you have a real-time live perspective of exactly where your microphone's pointing. So yeah, that one, it's a bit of a different animal, but it's currently in development. We're beta testing it now. The ones that are currently available are geared towards recording studios and live sound.
Cool. Just a question about the camera application. Now, is it only to see the microphone, or like, since you said it's for more like broadcast type things, could you automate your cameraman? Could you actually use it for camera purposes, like for actual video?
Well, so it's not it's not 4K or anything like that.
Okay.
But it is 720p, so it's a respectable quality. So certain applications it might be useful as kind of an alternate camera, but really the idea was just to have it on there for a real-time perspective of where the microphone's pointing. So if you're the audio mixer in your truck, you can actually be fine-tuning the microphone placement throughout an event. I mean, some simple examples would be, you're at a football game and you have that one really annoying guy in the crowd. Instead of having to cut that mic off, you can just pan away from it. Or ESPN used some Indy 500 above the pit booths, where the car would pull in forward or back. They wouldn't know exactly where the car was going to pull in. So now they can actually just fine tune it in real time. We've had interest from broadcasters that do boxing, from the Olympics, potentially for fencing. So all sorts of these kind of little applications when you're recording sporting events or broadcasting races. Is all these little things that being able to move your microphone in real time has some value.
That's awesome. And it sounds like the interest you're getting, these people are fairly excited about that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's a product we actually started developing it. I'd say about a year ago. So it's been a pretty long time in development, and the reason for that is we've been doing a lot of beta testing and refining the design. And it's something where we don't want to release the final official version until we really have it dialed in, so that it can really be as useful as possible for professionals in broadcast and film.
No, definitely. I'm sure they can't afford to have something that's released too early, especially when they're for what their applications are for. So
yeah, I mean, for example, we had a beta test from Warner Brothers at a voiceover studio, and they were requesting things like being able to do face tracking. So if you have an actor that's, maybe they shift where they're standing or something, something as simple as that, and now all of a sudden the microphone's not pointing right. Now you can actually use face tracking to just stay pointed at them in real time. So, things like that, we're constantly adding new features, refining the design, and we're hoping by the end of this year, it'll basically be ready to go.
Cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that. So how long have the other originals been on the market, or, how long have they been available?
So we did a Kickstarter back in 2015. That's what really got us off the ground. That kind of, it proved that there was demand for this. And so by the end of 2015, we fulfilled those orders, which is about 100 units. We started shipping actual production in 2016. So really, it's been on the market for a little over 2 years.
Okay. And is it primarily available only through you guys at this point, or are they like a kind of in a distribution or retail setting yet?
You can get them in a variety of places. In the U.S., you can get them from a lot of the usual suspects. You can get them at Sweetwater, Musician's Friend, Vintage King. You can also get it right at DynaMount.com. And then we have distributors all over the world. We have a distributor in Canada. We have guys in Europe, even parts of Asia. So I mean, if you go to DynaMount.com, we have a where to buy page, and you can see all the different places where it's available, but pretty much worldwide at this point.
Cool. Good to know, because I feel like this is one of those little things where if I'm not going to use it for what it's meant to be used for, my kids will love watching it for hours. So.
It has the gizmo factor, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, how did this start? What's the story or the inspiration behind the mounts? Why were you guys inspired to start this?
So my brother and I, we played in a band together for a long time, and we always recorded our own stuff. In particular, we record our own electric guitars, and it was just a recurring problem that we had where we would find a spot that we liked. After a bunch of experimenting, we'd say, okay, this spot sounds good, but we weren't sure, maybe we could find other good spots or better spots. And so we would keep experimenting, and then we could never find that spot again if we wanted to go back to it. So we kept saying, it'd be awesome, if there was just something out there that would let us move the microphone around and save presets. Whenever we found spots we liked, we could save presets. And, we looked around, we didn't see anything available. So we just went on our way, doing it the old fashioned way. And then I was actually making a living at the time, just paying my bills, doing freelance web design, and I was starting to get more into app development. I took an app development course, a certification course through UCSD, and I needed a final project. And I was like, that idea that we had a while ago about a mic positioner with presets, why don't I kill two birds with one stone? And I made the first prototype. The first DynaMount prototype was actually my final project for that class. And I got an A+ in the class, I'm happy to say. And when it was over, we were like, we have this prototype, it's working. We think that we find it useful. We think that this is something other people could appreciate. As we did a little research, nothing commercially available, we decided to start telling some people, and that's what led to the Kickstarter. And then it just went from there, snowballed from there. That's
awesome. I don't think many people can say that their school project became their actual business at some point.
Yeah, no, it was pretty serendipitous, I guess. It worked out great.
So this might just be me, I'm a drummer. I don't usually deal with amps or, mic placement a whole ton because it's usually the sound guy that's doing it. But the one thing that kind of was in the back of my mind after I think I talked to you in January was, it does the ability to do presets and everything and, being able to put it right back where you had it. But does that require like you to have the stand where it sits on the floor in front of it exactly the same, or how do you ensure that that is at the exact same spot you found before?
No, I mean, that's a good point. Essentially, I mean, just going with the simple example of electric guitar, if obviously if you leave your mic stand and DynaMount and cab, if you just leave it in position, obviously your presets will be good indefinitely. If you actually plan to move the cab away and move the stand away and then set it up again later, that obviously is a bit of a challenge. The simplest solution is going to be something like just putting a little tape on the floor, trying to mark off exactly where you had things positioned. But it is true that if you are going to move your setup and then bring it back, you do have to take care to put it in the exact same position if you want to use the same presets you had before. One thing we like to encourage with our products is experimenting, and the idea that there's no one sweet spot for a guitar cabinet, there's a sweet spot for a song or even a part of a song. So the idea that you would want to move it and bring it back and use the exact same positions, I can see applications for that, reamping or bringing the same band back in. But we really like to encourage experimenting for each particular song that you're working on.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't want to poke holes in the concept, but because the one thing that can change is physical location. If they're not attached, it's not like the mount is clamping to the bottom of the amp or something and always in the same spot. But yeah, it's good to know. I mean, even if you were to put tape on the amp itself as to where the post was,
yeah, I mean, for example, at trade shows, we tape a little tiny triangle to the guitar cab, to the mesh on the front of the guitar cab. So that way, if we move it and put it back, we know exactly where the center of the cone is and things like that. So I mean, it's essentially tape stickers is one of your best friends in that scenario.
Yeah. And I know it's a great application when, like you said, if you're changing the sweet spot positioning for songs and or between songs and all that sort of stuff. So it really comes in handy in a variety of ways that way. So that is pretty awesome. And again, they're actually add to the stage presence just because it's like, what is that? Why is it moving by itself?
Yeah, I mean, for recording studios, by far the most popular has been our X1R, which is the dual axis with rotation. For front of house for live sound, our V1R, which is the single axis, has been more popular because it's a little bit more compact. Less likely to get bumped by a guitarist as they're walking by or something like that. Joe Satriani actually recently did a South American tour, and his front of house engineer, Ace Baker, he used the V1R and he loves it. He would be at front of house on his iPad, venue by venue. He could just dial in what he felt was the best sound for that particular venue. That's
pretty cool. And I see you have a lot of people on your website who have kind of praised it and love it. What are some of the bigger names that have kind of endorsed or are backing what you're doing?
Yeah, we've been pretty stoked with the reception that the product has gotten in the industry. One of the first guys we ever showed it to, I mentioned earlier, my brother and I were playing in a band before we started DynaMount, and we knew producer Fred Archambault just through our own band stuff. He's done work with Avenged Sevenfold, Atreyu. He was the first guy we ever showed it to, and he was blown away. And he introduced us to Joe Barresi, who's done some amazing stuff. Cool, Queens of the Stone Age, Bad Religion, the list goes on with him. And he was the first guy that really, he made a big difference during our Kickstarter. A couple Facebook posts from a guy like him, and it just made all the difference in the world. So he's been a big evangelist for us. We have guys like Chris Dugan, the last Green Day album was recorded with a DynaMount. Guys like Andy Sneap, who's done Megadeth, he's got multiple DynaMounts. I mean, the list goes on, and we're very excited about that.
That is really cool. And it sounds like most of the applications right now are studio based.
Yes, I mean, I mentioned earlier Ace Baker. He's a great front of house engineer. He uses them for live sound, but the majority of the DynaMounts that are being used right now are recording studios.
Okay. And besides the one you mentioned, is there some people, I guess, still using it for live touring, or is there like a array of feedback that you've been getting on live touring applications?
Yeah, I mean, he was the most visible,
okay.
But there's also Tony, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Tony Sukar. He's a producer and multi-instrumentalist, pretty popular in the Latin music scene. His sound guy would use it. He would play on a cajon. He'd be sitting there and he'd get into it. And while he's performing it, he would shift sometimes. So his front of house engineer would just, just make a little adjustment on his V1R, and he would just shift the microphone over to match if the cajon shifted. And so that's another good example where it's being used for live.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially when people are moving around on stage. You just got to follow them around as far as you can go. Stay put. People can't do that. So,
yeah, I mean, our products are not on a drone or anything. It's not flying around the stage, but certainly gives you that 7 inches of being able to move the microphone side to side, or if it gets bumped, or if you notice that it's just sounding a little bit too shrill, rather than resorting to EQs, you can actually fine tune your mic placement, which is the better in, better out.
That drone thing, with the precision that you have to put into these ones, do you think there's an application for drones?
We did an April Fool's last year, I believe, which was we pretended we were announcing a new drone product. I think you're gonna run into some noise issues from the propellers on that one.
A little buzzing. They're not exactly the quietest things yet. So
yeah, for cameras, pretty amazing. For moving microphones, I'm not too sure about drones.
Can't hear any of the audio because all you hear is this.
Yeah, I mean, for example, with the Echo PT, I mean, that was actually a huge part of the development, was just making sure that it's extremely quiet, extremely smooth. I mean, there are a lot in the broadcast world, there's a lot of very sophisticated equipment out there. There are very sophisticated robotic camera systems out there. But what we were finding is that just about everything out there was either too big, too expensive, or too noisy. Essentially, it would either be overkill or too noisy to just do something like move a microphone. So yeah, we're trying to fill our little niche. We're definitely specialists focusing entirely on microphone placement.
Yeah. So to get something that quiet, seeing that everything else in the market is loud and obnoxious in comparison, how long did it take to get over that hump and just kind of figure out how to make that quiet?
I mean, as I mentioned, that product has been in development for quite a while now. So a lot of R&D has gone into the Echo PT. In terms of getting into the nitty gritty technical details, I'm not sure this is the right venue, but I can tell you that a lot of work has gone in. And right now we're pretty pleased with where it's at. And as I mentioned earlier, we're hoping by the end of the year that one's going to be readily available. Okay.
And I guess you did say that earlier, but I was wondering if are the other ones quieter, or do they have a little bit of a noise to them?
So the ones that are available right now, they make a little bit of noise while they're in motion. They weren't so much designed for example, they weren't designed for recording while moving the microphone around. It's mainly designed just to kind of go from position to position.
Okay.
Once in position, they're completely silent, but they do make a little bit of noise while they're moving. But I can say from the R&D on the Echo PT, the new one, we certainly have learned a lot from the R&D on that process, and we have plans. We don't have a set date, but we have plans for a little down the road to kind of create the next generation of the current product line, which we would take a lot of the technology we've developed for the Echo PT and now bring that back into the studio and live sound line.
Cool. In terms of how they work with different types of mics, is there a certain mic that they work better with? Are the clips created for certain mics, or is it just kind of a universal clip? Or
I mean, it uses standard 5/8 threads, and it can hold up to 5 pounds. So we really just tried to make it nearly every microphone you can put on there. I know there are some beasts out there that are 7-pound microphones that are pushing it a little bit. But I'd say 95% of microphones you can fit on there. So obviously things like 421s, SM57s are no problem whatsoever. Some of the mics where it has the XLR on the bottom, where it's more of a vertical microphone, for those we sell a little accessory pack. It comes with things like a thread extender, a clutch that lets you lets you angle the way you've mounted it. So it basically, in conjunction with our accessory pack, you can mount virtually any microphone.
Cool. And how have we talked about applications for amps mainly, but I know that your demo or your booth had a drum kit as well. Is your main focus on drums just the kick drum, or have you found applications for other areas of the drum kit as well?
So yeah, by far the most popular application has been electric guitar, but we've had people using them for all sorts of different things. We've the front of the kick drum has been a popular one, getting the phase in front of the kick drum. We've had people using them for drum overheads, for bottom snare mic, and then all sorts of things, from piano to, I mentioned, cajones to brass instruments. I mean, really, any situation where you're recording and you're using a microphone and you might want to adjust the position of that microphone, you can find ways to use our products to your benefit.
Cool. And how does I'm a little confused. How do they work for overhead? Aren't the stands a little heavy to be elevated, or how does that work?
Well, it's actually a common misconception, and maybe that's the case here. So our products aren't actually a stand. We call them microphone mounts, where it has standard 5/8 threads on the bottom and on the top. So essentially you can mount it to a mini mic stand one day. You can flip it upside down and mount it to a boom stand the next day. It just threads right onto the existing microphone stands that you have, and then your microphone just attaches directly to it with standard mic threads. So you can mount it upside down, vertically, right side up, on an incline. The sky's the limit.
Got it. That's even cooler. Yeah, I guess I kind of just assumed that it had come with its own feet. So
yeah. A lot of people they'll refer to our products as robotic microphone stands, but that really isn't accurate. It's really more of a mount that attaches to your existing stands.
And all of a sudden, the name of the company makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's cool. I would love to see them moving around above a drum kit. That's kind of cool. I didn't expect them to be that light where they would stay up that way.
Yeah, I mean, we highly recommend Latch Lake stands. There's some awesome guys at Latch Lake Music. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but their stands, they really, really lock into position. So if you wanted to do something like mount our X1R, which is our biggest model, if you wanted to mount that on a boom stand, you're probably not going to want to use, your $20 dirt cheap stand. You're going to want to mount it to a good stand. So for something like a Latch Lake boom, it's no problem at all. You can have a 2-pound microphone attached to our X1R, mounted upside down, and it's not going to droop.
Okay, yeah, that makes a whole heck of a lot more sense. I've actually been talking to Latch Lake again about doing an episode down the road, and I visited them right after I came to your booth because I saw they were right next to you, and yeah, those stands are beasts.
Yeah, we kind of formed just a little friendly business relationship with those guys just because we feel like our products really complement each other, where our products are at their best when they're mounted to a good quality, rigid microphone stand. So we love showing off our products using Latch Lake stands, and I think we actually started off sharing booths with Latch Lake for quite a few trade shows. I think it was kind of a good mutual thing where we had some good buzz going, so we were drawing in some extra people, but then their stands let our products be at their best.
Cool. Yeah, I can see that. The nightmare of having all of these flimsy boom stands tipping over during a show or a recording or whatever just isn't no one's dream. It's just everybody's nightmare. So.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to, again, the most popular application has been electric guitar. So when it comes to that, there's quite a variety of mini stands out there. So there's quite a few decent mini tripod stands that will work just fine. When it comes to mounting it, when it comes to mounting our products upside down on a boom, something like that, you're really gonna want to use a nice stand.
Well, cool. And I would highly encourage anybody listening to this to go out and check them out. I mean, it's to see the video or see them in action. What we're talking about doesn't really do them justice until you see what they're doing and how they're controlled. And it's more of a little mini experience than it is to try and verbalize all of this. So,
yeah, our products. It's something where we've had some pretty interesting feedback. I love hearing things like this. Where let me pull up the exact quote. I believe it was Tommy Dedamore, I believe is his name. He's a slide guitarist, and he's saying, when you first hear of something like DynaMount, you might think that it's a luxury. But he said that after getting his hands on it and after using it, he views it as a necessity. So I think it's something where once you get your hands on a DynaMount and you actually try it out in the studio or on stage, and you see how not only does it make your life easier, but it makes it fun finding the sweet spot. You can really experiment easily, doing precise A/B comparisons, all these things that you just can't do by hand, or even if you have an intern, they just can't do. So I think once you get your hands on them, it definitely tends to convince people.
They definitely fill the void of frustration for placement. That's a good way of, like you said, it's a good way of putting it. What is this taking care of, or what does this problems, or what does this product solve, or problem that it solves? Excuse me. And just that's one more thing off a player's mind to not have to worry about that as much and focus on what they love to do. So.
Yeah, I think just very generally speaking, two common types of recording engineer. You have the guys that will kind of go back and forth over and over again, making little adjustments by hand until they're really happy with the microphone position. And for guys like that, I think our product is kind of a no-brainer. It's like this saves you so much effort and hassle. It lets you just sit there in your control room, listening through your monitors, making little adjustments on the fly, and hearing the changes in real time. And then you also get the guys who kind of have their go-to positions, where they say, okay, I always just kind of put it here, just off the center of the cone at a 45-degree angle, or wherever it is. They kind of have their go-to position, and they set it and forget it. And for guys like that, I like to point to some of the feedback we've gotten from some pretty big name producers, some pretty respected guys, like Glenn Fricker of Spectre Sound said something along the lines of, he would blindly move the microphone around with a DynaMount, just lit while the band was jamming. He'd just be moving it around, and the spots he would end up selecting were totally different from anything he would have done by hand. So things like that. So even if you're one of those guys that kind of has your go-to positions, I think with a DynaMount, you're going to find some brand new go-to positions that you never would have tried before. And
that's really cool. Anything to improve that sound and that sweet spot. Yeah.
And going back to, one of our kind of founding principles, where we don't think that there's a sweet spot for a speaker or a sweet spot for a guitar cab. I think it really comes down to song by song, artist by artist, part by part, what's most appropriate for that given moment.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I wanted to give you a chance to plug the website so people can find out more about the products.
Yeah, everything you need to learn about DynaMount can be found right at DynaMount.com. All of our product info is there. You can pick up DynaMounts right from DynaMount.com, or you can find them at all the usual suspects, Sweetwater, Vintage Gang, Musician's Friend. But yeah, head on over to DynaMount.com. It's got all the info.
Cool. And we'll post a link to that, as well as some of your social channels on the show notes when this gets posted. So
awesome.
Well, cool. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. This has been great, and it's been fun revisiting our little robotic friends. So.
Right on. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Backline, brought to you by Octave Media, an inbound marketing agency focused on helping music merchants develop an automated solution to increase website sales. You can find Octave Media at www.octave.media. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast in iTunes or Google Play Music to learn more about great products and companies in the musical instrument, pro audio, and event technology space, and be sure to leave a review to let us know what you thought of this episode. We encourage you to share us with your friends and colleagues via social media, and we'll see you next time. Take care.